Welcome to the UAP channel. Today we're going to compare maps and what makes this it's supposed to be the oldest map in the world. It's interesting that it's a perfect circle. I observed it when I was at the London Museum of Science, and along with this other stuff like this celestial globe. It's just a crummy version of the astrolabe. Something that worked for thousands of years with thousands of functions. That celestial globe doesn't compare. Today we use ground positioning system, and the satellites don't cover certain areas. And there are maps. I mean, one of the most accurate maps of Hyperborea comes from the game Dark Tower, which I think is also interesting. But a lot of people, I wonder if you've wondered why the equator can be way off center on this Mercator type projection. Well, I'm going to show you some truth that will blow your mind on this UAP channel. Okay, so you're familiar with this AE map, which is the azimuthal equidistant projection map, which isn't really azimuthal equidistant projection. That's what the globe actually is. The flat circular map is the actual one. So if we go back 500 years and look at Columbus, did you see the map there? I mean, it's just way off. Columbus was lost, and his idea, the world as Christopher Columbus thought it looked, was way wrong. And the circumference isn't wrong, isn't correct, and which I find very curious, because aren't we led to believe that since the days of Aristarchus and Archimedes, we knew the circumference of the Earth? And I believe that we did know that, but we also knew it to be a circular path that the sun traveled over the flat plane. This thing is ridiculous. So let's compare this map from 1587, which is basically your flat Earth map. It hasn't changed since 1587 much, and I'm going to show exactly what I'm talking about. It's the right way to make maps. It's flat. It's not a projection. This is just what it looks like looking down from the top center. And, the globe is a planispherical azimuthal equidistant projection of this map, where the southern latitudes are compressed to a single point, such that the outer ring becomes a single point. And we have data that's taken from wind and distance units that makes the map that you saw with the circular path of the sun, and it correlates with this very well. So real world data, the latest that we have, is suppressed, but I have it. I've got it for you on this channel. As long as it lasts, you do need to subscribe to my other channel, and I'll remind you at the end of this video. Very important. Yeah, all the information today, what 99% of what 99% of people see is misinformation. It's misused or misapplied correct information, if it is correct. Comparisons are not done properly. You have to reject the premise, and things that beg the question aren't pointed out, and the question isn't asked. And false accusations are made, like to people like me. They accuse me of saying, you guys don't have a model, but my model is the reality. That's why I differ. That's why I don't believe in the globe, because the globe isn't reality. It's a ball that's in a classroom. It's a CGI animation that comes from the authorities. I don't care who it comes from. I'm not going to start off with what I can't see. I'm going to start off with what I can see. I'm going to start off with what I know. I'm only going to consider what is observable, repeatable, and reproducible. And by reproducible, I mean what I see would be the same thing that others would see if they sought to find the information themselves. If that's a drawing by somebody, that person can make another drawing, and then the two of us see different things. So that wouldn't be reproducible. See? Now, if it is a drawing and it's done by two people who are 500 years apart and have no idea that the other exists in this case, then I would say, yes, that is very well reproduced, and it is very evident that the two very differing sources coming up with basically the same looking map, that tells you a lot about the accuracy of it. So it may not be extremely precise, and the precision might not match up that great. But this old map from 1587 was only reassembled just last year in 2017, or maybe about 2 years ago. So, you know, it's a different thing that another reason to believe that the azimuthal equidistant projection that is so-called is the most accurate representation that we have, especially when it's backed up by evidence from shortly after Columbus's screwing up of all of the world maps that existed or may have existed before his time. Well, I'm sure they did, but I don't find it hard to believe that there was a cover-up, because there's a lot of evidence that the Romans were roaming all over the world. They were, they had structures, and they had a reach far beyond what we've been taught. Okay, so now in 1492, or so it would seem, a certain lost explorer circled the ocean green to officially discover the old Western world and foisted it upon humanity, a sphere that twirled with imaginary spin, and whoever so navigated by it lost destination's end. Many ships wrecked from one globe faker, and irony from Cece, the heralded map maker. Recently now, Urbano Monti's map of 1587 proves a comparison to reality that's much more smooth. 500 years of refinement. Still, the globe is a rube. 1587, the flat earth map from 1587 to today, they are right on the money. I mean, it's very impressively correlating. The correlation is way above 0.5. Sure, it's not 1.0. It probably could have been if they hadn't covered it up. It probably could be correlating 1.0 today to reality, the actual geography, in as much as is possible with, fractals and things like that, of coastlines and such, that old chestnut. But there's no reason that we couldn't have a much, much better map today than we, because with all the cover-up and doing everything screwbally, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you just go to Google Earth and you take the globe and you spin it 180 degrees, and you spin it 180 degrees once again, and see if you end up where you started. And you won't. You won't. There's some little tricky things they've put in there, and they might put in some more little tricky things, but the fact of the matter is, with all the warping and stretching and strange stuff they have to do, and the constraints of actually representing real geography in the areas where it is verifiable, they have their hands tied. And the globe, the Google Earth globe, it's just not reality. It's just not. I mean, it doesn't represent reality, which is what it's supposedly supposed to do. It can represent things pretty well. I use it, but it's only because of availability and the refinements where things are verifiable. But once you get outside the verifiable, like with the curvature, nobody's been able to verify the curve, any visual curve of the Earth, period. So that's a perfect example. Okay, so, that's what all the preconditioning and mind control stuff is all about. So this channel is under the gun a little bit. There's a whole thing with YouTube that I don't understand with this issue of 3 strikes. Some other channels are on the edge, and you don't have to be on the edge. I'm not on the edge, but I can see how that can happen really fast. And with the number of videos, the 3 strikes doesn't scale up, and that is a huge issue. It's not fair, because the more content you provide, the more you're at risk of losing all of that content. And as such, I wonder how channels like CNN or CBS that produce thousands and thousands of videos don't receive 3 strikes in like a few days. It really boggles my mind, this policy. And I never have a comfortable feeling. So I created a website, and that's going to be the home base. And eventually I'd like to get all my videos on there and whatnot. I'll maintain a YouTube channel at all times anyway, probably. But just because I don't want to have all my eggs in one basket, I have this other YouTube channel called UAP channel. And I would really like you to go over there and subscribe now, because I'm going to be uploading probably many of the future videos over there, at least for a while. And I just don't want to accumulate too many videos on one channel, because they can all just go away in one day if you happen to get 3 strikes. You can appeal them, and I win. Whenever it happens, I win if I appeal, but you never know. You just never know. So please go and do that right now. And don't forget to subscribe to, check out, bookmark, highlight, save the website page, which is uapchannel.net. That's uapchannel, all one word, .net. Okay? And I have music on there, and photographs, and all kinds of other stuff you can't see perhaps anywhere else. All right, so one of the things that makes this channel really different is that I am an underrated actual physicist, and I've been going back and forth with Scott Manley. And if you don't know him, he's kind of famous in some circles because he's an expert on Kerbal Space Program and Apple, and probably quite a few other things. He's a clever guy, a man after my own heart in many ways. However, we are debating and differing on the subject of fake space. And so I've gone back and forth with him. I'm trying to get him to divorce his assumptions. And he's convinced that these scholarly articles from the past demonstrate that there weren't assumptions, or the assumptions were eliminated through, I don't know, I guess observable experiments, or I don't know, because he keeps saying that you can calculate the distance of the moon exactly to 238,000 miles and whatever. But I looked through the material he sent me, and it didn't take me long to find quite a bit of assumptions that were summarily admitted by various people throughout, Cavendish and afterwards. And so I pointed these out. One of the assumptions was the curvature of the Earth. So if he can't get rid of his assumptions, it's one of these things where all the data is going to be convincing for him of the grand distances to these celestial objects, when if you take the same data and you dispense with the assumptions and you use a flat Earth, then it shows a much closer distance. And it's like this Yanny-Laurel debate. The data has both possibilities in there, but in this case, the one frequency band would be a certain assumption, whereas the other frequency band is based on no assumptions.
You hear Yanny?
Laurel. Laurel.
Or Laurel?
Laurel. Laurel.
And people see and experience the same thing, but they interpret it differently.
Laurel.
Now, about 50% of the population is hearing Yanny, about 50% is hearing Laurel.
Oh no, what's wrong with me?
One of the first aspects is priming. If you were to play this clip without providing the option of Yanny or Laurel, you may have heard neither of these words, but by reading them, you're primed to hear one or the other.
And that's what education is doing.
Is that this is not a normal distribution you would find with normal human speech.
This is a visual depiction of the sound waves of the original Yanny/Laurel recording.
The other thing I noticed was that the patterns up top don't mirror the patterns at the bottom. With normal human speech, you'll see that when there's intensity down here, there's also intensity up top. Those are harmonics.
Created by Brad Story, a professor of speech, language, and hearing.
Normal human speech, you'd have a lot more energy in through here than what this does. So there's something strange going on here. It's not what we're used to hearing.
Yearly. Laurel. Yanny. Laurel. Yearly. Yanny. Laurel. I'm pranking you. It's me.
It's pretty clear from what I'm seeing here that these are actually two distinct signals that have been overlaid on top of each other. So if I highlight this lower section right here and play that.
UAP channel. Space is fake. Space is fake.
Probably hear the word Laurel. I certainly do. And play that.
Laurel. Yo, Laurel. Tranny.
I hear the word Yanny there. As for why you hear one versus the other, there's any number of reasons. The quality of speakers or headphones that you're listening on can play a big part of that, and whether they emphasize the higher frequencies or the lower frequencies. But also your brain's predisposition to hear one versus the other. You know, for example, if you know somebody named Laurel and you hear their name all the time, your brain becomes trained to recognize that pattern, and you're probably more likely to pick up on that.
Laurel. Laurel is a tranny who does things on a yearly basis with Yanny.